All right, let's get our Facebook folks up in here. Boom, boom. Welcome in, guys. Welcome in. It is Thursday morning, 7:14. We're almost halfway through July already, and it's 7:33 a.m. Mountain Time, which means it's time for an episode of What's the Hat Say? Broncos for Breakfast. I am Nick Kendell, and joined by, as always, on these morning shows, Scott Kennedy. Scott, good morning to you. How's the coffee?
It's a good thing you don't wear a hat that says "F you" or something like that,
What's the hat say?
because I think that's the only way you know what day it is by the hat you're wearing. I was like, so what day? What show is this? What's the hat say? Oh, whoops, wrong hat. Going good.
Mom. No.
I haven't actually hit the coffee yet. It's still cooling. I was running just a couple minutes behind this morning, so we'll play the let's find out when the coffee hits Scott's system game today. It's usually about 15 minutes or so.
Yeah, it's always fun to see that. I'm just starting to get my first sip as well, but let's say hello to some people in the chat here. Of course, we got Ethan coming in, one of the biggest benefactors and supporters of the show, and Josie Jewel lover. Just could not think higher of Josie Jewel. Good afternoon, gents of Broncos country. He also says, do you have a link for that? I hope I sent it in the chat here, so hopefully you got that. Dale's in the house too, also a big supporter of the show. Good to see you, Dale. Hope you're doing well. I don't know if it gets easier, but thinking about you, really glad that we can hang out these morning and afternoon shows. And thank you for providing insightful commentary in the chat as well. Dale says, good afternoon, Ethan. Good morning, Nick and Scott in Broncos country. Good to see you. And Dale also says, let's see what another of these national journalists has to say about our team. I always really enjoy this moment of the year when Mike Clay goes through and tediously grades every single positional group in the entire NFL in a 4.0 scale. So you think about it like grades. It's not like A, B, or C. It's, the Broncos are getting or let's say the Eagles are getting a 3.8 in the cornerback room. Okay, what is that? That's a high A. You're doing pretty well there on that one. So go ahead.
But I have a problem with the methodology, which we can get into.
Okay, for sure.
Not necessarily the results, but the methodology of, again, the formula itself is. Yeah. I've got some problems with it, and then the discussion about the subjectivity of the position grades or whatnot. That's always up for debate, but the methodology itself, I have a couple problems with.
Okay, we can get into that a little bit more because he doesn't totally lay it out, and I've actually had a few discussions with Mike Clay about this as well. So, like, some of the positions are weighted far heavier than the others. It's not just a straight across. So we'll get into it. Ethan, Jeremy's also here saying, "Hey, Dale and Ethan, where's our hello, Jeremy? Gosh, Sunny Days in here with the thumbs up and the coffee and the hearts. Good to see you." Also saying good morning, everybody. Good to see you. Troy Winchester coming in saying, "Let's go, Broncos championship is almost here." Man, heck. Let's just give us some winning football. Championship can come after. I need to have an appetizer of real important football games. Let's play some meaningful football games in December first before we start talking champion. You know what? If you want to start talking championship, that's fine. I need my appetizer first. Toyin Williams coming in saying good morning, afternoon, Broncos country. Good to see you. Mike Gibbons always in here too, saying good morning, Nick and Scott. Falling Sloth out there in Cincinnati. Hope you're doing well. Saying a good morning, Broncos country. Hope everyone out there is happy and healthy as can be. I tweaked my knee. It's still a little bit funky. I wake up, it's a little bit stiff. And when I go from like bent to straight, it kind of sharp pain. So trying to get that taken care of. I got a heating pad on that right now. But doing okay. It's just I turned 30 and things start falling apart. Yep. Woohoo. Luke Wright coming in here saying good morning, Nick and Scott. Good to see ya. Oh, we got Fernando Gomez in here saying go Broncos as well. Greg Smith, aloha to you, buddy, saying good morning, Broncos for breakfast. And Dale saying, I'm doing well, Nick. Next big challenge will be September 19th, Carrie's birthday. Well, we're here. If you make sure you remind us, we'll wish her a happy birthday. We'll be doing Monday shows again at that point because that'll be in the season. So we'll be here. And guess what? If you're not here, you get an excused absence for that one if you need to, Dale. Travis Weber also in the house saying good morning, Nick and Scott in Broncos country. Luke coming in saying, go Iowa wrestling. Iowa just got a player who's a wrestler and a football player who won a gold medal in the juniors for wrestling for the international tournaments there. So Iowa wrestling runs deep. A lot of fun. Sebastian Dispo coming in with the Giants logo there. Giants always a thorn in the butt of my Broncos. Also, the Cardinals. The Cardinals last night really ticked me off. 6-0 lead, and they blew it to the Dodgers. God, I can't stand them. Good morning. Just found out that I'm going to the game against Seattle and again the game against the Niners and the Chargers and potentially the Chiefs. Holy cow. Sebastian, take me with. God, that's a great slate of games. That's going to be a lot of fun. Congrats. I will be at the game in Seattle. It's a Monday, so I'll be working. But hit me up on Twitter. I'll be around. I'm not sure. I've never been to a game in Seattle, so I'm not sure what the plan is or what people do before the games. But I'll be there in a nosebleed seat. But gosh darn it, I'll be there. And John Larson also in here. Playoffs, baby. Let's go. And Mike Gibbons getting us off here with the $20 super. Thank you so much, Mike. Gosh, we really appreciate you. And Fernando also coming in and saying, listen to the pod all the time on Apple Podcasts. Russ will cook. Believe that. Thank you so much, Fernando. We agree. Let him cook. And Miguel coming in saying, good morning, fellas. It's been a while. Hope all is well. All is well, Miguel. We appreciate you. And guys, hey, you. Yeah, you got some stuff to take care of downstairs. You definitely do if you haven't tried the best products from our sponsor today, Manscaped. Take control of your below the waist parts. These products are so good. You're going to be showing pride in your new cleaned up yard. I guess that's the way they don't want us to use the word bush. So we'll get into that later. It's a fact that you will have the best kept nutsack on the cul-de-sac. Save big and be the most hygienic version of yourself by using our discount code MHH for 20% off and free shipping at Manscaped. Won't go too long to the products, but I really enjoy it. It's a simple one. But the pH control crop mop. I like fishing. I like hiking. I'm trying to get more into bouldering and scrambling and backpacking. And let me tell you guys, I'm a sweater. If there's ever an apocalypse, I'm going to die of dehydration pretty quickly because I'm just going to sweat everything out. And being able to be clean and clean yourself up, protects you from all sorts of issues back there. Just makes you feel better. So the crop mop, took it with me backpacking on the 4th of July weekend. Used a lot of it. Had to get more. So really like the crop mop. Also, of course, guys, they have the Lawnmower 4.0, the grooming package, performance package 4.0 as well. Trimmer is designed to reduce grooming accidents and shave hair on loose skin thanks to a ceramic blade and the advanced skin safe technology. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com. Use our code MHH. It's time you leveled up from the Amazon to the Amadong with the ultimate bushwhacking tools from Manscaped. All right, Scott, that's out of the way. We did it.
Yeah. And make sure you use the code MHH, 20% off. And again, they're getting into the apparel type of stuff. Again, I like the boxer briefs. I don't necessarily, we get into some of these things but I want to check out the boxer briefs. I'm a boxer briefs guy. Now, we're almost 8 minutes into the show. Should we get into some content here?
Yeah, absolutely. I do want to say hello to a couple more people real quick. EJ in here. Good morning, Nick and Scott in Broncos country. Ready for another great show. Well, that's great. And with your record, Nick, don't go with Sebastian in the game. Yeah, I'm 0-7 in Broncos games I've attended, but I'm going, guys. Sorry.
You are due.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's a gambler's fallacy, right? Oh, just every time the odds reset. Oh, just one more time. I'm 0-7. It has to happen this time. But we'll see. Greg Smith also saying he's a lifelong Dodgers fan. Well, good for you. I guess, it's a good team and it's fun to have that much wealth. I mean, I'm a Cardinal fan. I can't complain too much. We've had a life of bliss in my lifetime for the most part. So EJ also coming in and saying Manscaped completely changed my life for the better. I went from a single bachelor to a married man thanks to Manscaped. Man, that's a testimonial that we need.
It's almost not fair, though. This isn't a conversation for this show, but about, men and women, women who are well built, you can show it a lot easier. But EJ, I'm wondering, once you find out that you're Manscaped or not, the hard work's already been put in.
Yeah.
You can't just wear a low cut shirt and say, hey, I'm Manscaped, check me out. It doesn't quite work that way for men without getting arrested or being called whatever. I guess not a conversation for today.
There's no public nudity. No public nudity in Seattle. The summer solstice, they have a big, huge naked bike ride in Fremont, which is a time of debauchery and chaos. But haven't been yet because I've always been gone doing something. But at some point, Kurtman coming in saying, good morning, my boys. Go Broncos. Going back to sleep. Well, God, let's keep you up on here. Good to see you. But let's hang out a little bit before we get out of here. Dave Glassman coming in with the stars. Thank you so much, Dave. Luke Wright also. Ayo. We got Kathy coming in morning. All happy to catch you live once again. That's great.
And we're glad we're here now, Kathy. And you missed the last. No, Kathy, you should have some fun with some of these Manscaped reads too. They're meant in good fun for sure. And again, if I were to get something like that as a present from my wife, I would take it as a hint. So I think these reads are for the ladies. If you'd like to see your men do something a little different, get them one of these things from Manscaped and use the code MHH.
Yeah,
we'll listen. We'll listen.
Yeah, 100%. Also, I would take it as a ticket. Like, okay, I use this. What's going on later? Are we gonna have we're gonna have some fun? We're gonna hang out. Fallen Sloth coming in saying, as a Reds fan, I can confirm the Cardinals have had a lot of success in Nick's time. Yeah, it's been a good time. But before we get into the topic here with Mike Clay, we got a question here from Miguel, and we want to keep Miguel coming back for our shows because he hasn't been here for a bit. So let's get into this one first. And then this is the appetizer before we get into Mike Clay's conversation here. Miguel says, what are you guys hoping to see out of training camp now that it's just around the corner? So Scott, I'll kick this off to you first. You're muted.
I did mute. Thank you. Defensive line is a part of it. I want to see how that rotation goes. The front five in a 3-4 with edges. How does it line up early? If Randy Gregory isn't quite ready to go when it gets started, who's lining up opposite him, and how does it look? How do they use those guys? Bradley Chubb and Randy Gregory should be wrapped in bubble wrap in the preseason. So who's going to come in and get some good work? And again, I'm interested in the front five of that 3-4 defense, the 3 interior linemen and the 2 edge guys. That's where I want to see. I think that's where you have the most questions. And then the battle at right tackle. The battle across the offensive line. The trenches are the most intriguing here for me. So that's what I'm interested in seeing, is who's going to step up and claim some jobs. That's what I'm interested in. It's going to be fun watching Russ throw the ball all over the place, but I'm interested in the jobs that are up for grabs, not just the shiny new toy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. For me, the thing I'm most interested in training camp is just seeing where these players that we have questions about, where their roles really start to come together. Where is DJ Jones going to play? Is he going to play the nose tackle in 3-4 base? Is he's going to be more of a 4-2-5 kind of look guy, or whatever you want to call it, the nickel sub, where you have different players out there because he's not playing the nose or the 4-eye? Where are the wide receivers going to line up? Because I've talked about it on here. I think Jerry Jeudy could be a fine slot, but from what this team has run specifically with Nathaniel Hackett, that slot functions as an F as much as a slot, which is it's one of the terminologies for like the detached tight end. There's a lot on that slot wide receiver to block. It's one of the things that makes Cooper Kupp phenomenal, because he is an absolute ass kicker as a blocker, and they can run that wide zone all day. And he's almost like as good as a small tight end out there blocking, getting in the linebackers and the safeties. And it totally changes what defenses have to do against you. So that's not Jerry Jeudy's game. I mean, Jerry Jeudy, one of the best separators in football already, when healthy, but blocking, that's not really his frame, not his game. And it's fine. He can be valuable in different ways, but does that mean Cortland Sutton's going to be playing the slot? Does that mean Tim Patrick's playing the slot?
Or do they change the way they do some of the things?
Yeah. Or do they change the offense? We'll be really curious. The other one is, what does the offense look like with Russell Wilson? What are the emphases or emphasi of what Russell Wilson does? Because we've talked about it on here ad nauseum. Russell Wilson historically has not really utilized the middle of the field compared to his counterparts, probably in large part due to his height. It's one of the reasons he's one of the most efficient down the field passers, because he has to be as good as he has been. But what does it look like with Nathaniel Hackett? Because Aaron Rodgers last year, if you look at the heat map, he didn't use the middle of the field that much either. Honest to God, in the short middle area of the field, not as much as Russell Wilson avoided it, but still didn't. And the Packers were fine. So the speed outs, the RPO, does that help negate the necessity for the quick middle of the field pass game? I don't know. But I think we're going to get a little bit more idea in training camp preseason. And the final one is just some of these, bottom end of the roster questions, like who's going to be cornerback 4? Mathis? Are we going to see Austin in there? Michael Ojemudia? How does the safety position battle out? And you mentioned it, the defensive line. Defensive line and the offensive line are probably the biggest question marks. You're not going to get the most information from those in training camp specifically, because they're not going to be going hard at each other. But in preseason, you should start to be able to get an idea of it. Are these guys holding up? Are they making an impact? Because we'll get into it here. Biggest question mark on this Broncos roster, according to Mike Clay, is definitely the big boy areas of the roster.
And we've said that all along, and that's where a lot of the upgrades went early. Every time a new free agent was coming in, it was either good against a run or a good blocker. From the skill position players, I am very interested to see KJ Hamler. That's the one guy that I'm interested in seeing, and not just because, how is he going to be used? Because you can't necessarily tell all those things in preseason. They don't show a lot, but it is about getting reps and getting healthy and staying healthy. And that's what KJ Hamler needs to do. So I want to see him, see how well he's moving out there, see how comfortable he is. that's one I'll be keeping an eye on for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't disagree with you one bit. However, you mentioned Randy Gray, Green Bradley, Chubb, and Bubble Wrap. Maybe the same for the likes of KJ Hamler for me and Mark Schrader coming in, one of our big benefactors on this show, and just a stand-up guy as well. Always appreciate talking with Mark on Twitter and Facebook. Hope you're doing well, Mark, down in Texas. And he says, good morning, guys, with 2 exclamation points, one for each cup of coffee that we're drinking here today. So thank you so much, Mark, for the support. We appreciate you. Also saw Rob Bucksbum is in here. Good morning, Nick and Scott. My favorite MHH team. Stop it. You're going to make me blush. You can't tell because I'm wearing the red shirt. But happy Thursday from Nashville. Scott, we are big fans of Nashville. Great city. Have you been, when's the last time you've been to Nashville?
I don't remember the last time. I've been close because I usually end up south of Nashville, getting up close to Murfreesboro or Brentwood just before really going into Nashville, but it's been a while. But I love the big cities in Tennessee because the river's running through it. It just it adds a different element to some of the landlocked. Not everybody's got some nice water, but having the rivers go through it, I like a nice river. It's like sitting out there and watching things go by better than just the waves coming in all the time. So I'm a river guy for sure.
I think I'm more of a sound guy. Now it's just be Seattle hype coming in here. We also got Sal. I don't recognize this name. Saul Roylis coming in here. Please let me know how to pronounce Roylis. Okay, it wasn't not bad. Coach Hackett will play to the strength. Good morning, Saul. On Facebook, saying Coach Hackett will play to the strength.
Apologies for our boring Nick, Scott. I always say that us Gen X white guys only had about 6 names to choose from: Scott, Mike, John.
Mark.
There's Michael. I already said Mike. But Nick's is pretty easy too.
My generation specifically, Nick became very popular, and just a little bit. I guess I'll peel back the curtain a little bit. Not even a joke. I'm Nick because my dad is obsessed with Christmas. So it's St. Nicholas. Here I am. But Sal saying Coach Hackett will play to the strength of the players. Let's ride Broncos country. Well, Sal, I hope you're having a good Thursday morning, Friday Junior, before we get into it here. And we also got Lawrence Rivera always coming in, giving us support and helping us out here, saying, morning, everyone. Peanut butter and jelly and coffee to start the day, right? Okay, I like a lot of things for breakfast, and Scott probably was, it's food, it's fine. I don't know about a PB&J for breakfast. That one kind of, I guess it does have jelly.
But you can do that as toast. You can also do that as toast, as peanut butter and jelly toast. The Peter Pan honey peanut butter is deadly. I put on a pound a week if that stuff's in the house. So luckily I ran out of bread because I'd been doing really well until the PB&J ended up back in my house again. I'm like, oh God. Like, I should have a Slim Fast shake. Oh, but there's peanut butter and jelly. I don't want it to go to waste.
Oh, man.
Try that honey stuff. The Peter Pan honey is unbelievable. Even on a good PB&J scale, it's a different level.
Oh, nice. I'll say what I'm about is living out, again, some more Pacific Northwest hype, but the fresh jams and jellies from the berries that are grown out here. Oh, my God. Unbelievable. Like, you go to the farmer's market and they have people like, oh, this is from our own, blueberry or blackberry patch. Holy bleep. Unbelievable. Albert Knopper is coming in. Hey guys, hope you're doing well. Bama X also, good morning, Broncos country. And of course, Ethan saying, no linebacker talk for me today. Oh, we're going to get into it, Ethan. We're going to get you in here. But I agree on assessment. The linebacker was surprised the overall defense was ranked 18th. Yeah, let's get into that now. I see also a few more people in here, but let's do it. I'm going to pull up the image here, Scott, real quick. Pause for dramatic effect. I have the okay. Let me know. Can you see that? It's unfortunate. It's a square rather than a rectangle, so it's a little harder to see. Maybe I'll zoom in a little bit.
I'm not sure how much you can zoom.
Is that all on there still? Okay. Well, Broncos are here, and let's get on into it. So the Broncos
that's tough to see. Let me try real quick. And
I can zoom in too and
just
do the Broncos.
I don't mind scrolling. Let me try and share real quick. Share. There you go. You got it. That's good. Yeah, we don't mind scrolling.
Okay. So there we go. Broncos. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but they start off with a 3.0. And let's scroll up a little bit so that way we can see what position everything is. Boom. Okay. The Broncos almost near the bottom there. If I get rid of Ethan's thing here as well.
And to Ethan's point, I agree on his assessment at linebacker that it's low. It's a 1.3 here, but it's also the second lowest graded, accounted for weight position behind tight end.
Yep.
So they're running backs only 3%.
Yep.
Wow. Again, those are things you can agree with. What I don't like on this is that it's a linear scale. Okay. You say all the time, I like to break things up in tiers. And I always said in when I was doing rankings for class rankings, any kind of rankings, a numerical, a straight 1 through 25, 1 through 32 doesn't tell you the whole story. So when I'm doing this, if you've got a 3, as you said, okay, a 3.8, well, no one else has a 3.8. So It's not just a high B. It's a linear scale.
Yeah.
And player rankings aren't linear. There's tiers, there's shelves. The difference between one guy and the next guy could be this big, or it could be, and for those of you listening later, could be very small, or it could be a big drop off from one player to the next. So to have it in a linear scale like this, I don't agree with it. I don't think that's necessarily the right way to go. I think I think it takes some guts to do that, honestly, because you could say, oh, well, he's a 3.5, he's a 3.5, he's a 3.5. Yeah. So this at least gives you some differentiation. It changes it up a little bit, but player grades are not linear, and unit grades are not linear. And to say that they are is, again, this isn't garbage, but the phrase when you're talking about data and formulas, garbage in, garbage out, that's a flaw. That's a flaw in my opinion, which then makes me call into question your results because your methodology is flawed.
Yeah. Absolutely. Let's get on into it here with the Broncos. First, want to say hello to Kevin Gray saying good morning, guys. Scott and Nick, Broncos country. Still wondering about the offensive line? Let's ride. Yeah, we'll get into the offensive line here. But first, want to talk about, of course, the quarterback position ranked at 28% of the overall grade. Scott, this might be crazy of me to say. I think that's too low. I think the quarterback should be like 33% of your overall grade, which I know is insane. But if you don't have that guy, you're nothing. And most of the quarterbacks' grades are probably going to be, closer to the middle. So it's not going to be a full 33%, but I think it's 20. I don't think 28 is even enough.
Yeah. But again, if it's a linear grade, then I don't think you can have it that high because, again, you've got the 8th guy getting 2 first-round draft picks and is certainly capable of taking you to a championship. So, should it be when you're doing it linear and the 8th guy is a 2.5 on here, you're getting crushed for having an 8th, the 8th ranked quarterback, or, a 3.2, you're getting hammered when obviously it's good enough. So maybe that's trying to balance it out some. I don't know. Again, I have a problem with the whole methodology because it's a linear grade. So does 28%, that sounds that's not quite what they take up on the salary cap. So if I were to look at the salary cap and say 40 million is about on par for what it's taken to build rosters these days, you're about 20% of your salary cap goes to your quarterback room right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the Broncos coming in with a 3.0, which is not bad, maybe a little low, but I guess we can call Mike Clay a doubter, somewhat of Russell Wilson here. And quarterbacks he has ranked above. Dak Prescott ranked above him. Matt Stafford ranked comfortably above him. We have Bengals 3.3, so Joe Burrow, Josh Allen above him, Aaron Rodgers getting that perfect 4.0. Chargers 3.4, Justin Herbert significantly graded higher than Russell Wilson there, 3.4, and then Buccaneers 3.8. I don't think there's any quarterbacks that are higher than
3.2.
I didn't see a 3.7 either.
Yeah, so again, it's linear, but sometimes there's steeper drop-offs.
Yeah.
There's no flat line.
No.
But sometimes there's steeper drop-offs, which again, it's a little odd. So
it's a fun talk.
It's odd for me.
It is odd, but I enjoy this is totally different than what other people do. So I enjoy it overall, I would say. And also let's look down real quick. Seahawks.
I think Jeremy had a good comment earlier. I'll pull it up if I can find it, but he says he said something to the effect is, I think they have a desired result and they back the numbers into them. It's I'm not sure. It's not quite how he said that. He's like, I think they engineer the numbers, basically the grades, to fit what they want them to be. It's like, okay, I think the Buccaneers have the best team. I'm gonna put them number 1, and if they don't end up number 1, I'm gonna change edge from 2.2 to 2.4 to move them up a little bit. I think there's some of that goes on. I really do.
Wouldn't doubt it. again, I still think this is a fun formula because it's just so different than what everybody else does. Michael Ronquillo coming in. Good morning, Nick and Scott and Broncos for breakfast. Let's ride and go Broncos. And we got Kenneth Booker coming in saying, what kind of stats does Chubb need to warrant a contract extension? First off, 17 games played. That's probably the first stat.
That's the big one.
That's the big one. Then
At
it's
least
probably
15. At least 15.
Yeah. And then it's probably 10 plus sacks. And the big one for me is, I think sacks are more of a product of your overall play, where one that is more predictive and better week to week or better overall year to year is hurries. And I think you probably want him in the 40 plus pressures range, which would have put him top 15, would have put any edge rusher top 15 last year in pass rush. So last year, Max Crosby had 77, which is insane. Von Miller next most at 59. So pretty big drop off after there. Leonard Floyd down there at 54. But yeah, you probably want the pressures to be pretty high and you want 10 sacks total.
And Kenneth, I don't know that he gets an extension as opposed to a tag. Would you be willing? A tag's going to cost you $20 million. Okay. Would you be willing to say, okay, I'm going to give you a 4-year, $60 million with 35 guaranteed, or would you rather just say, I'll give you one for 20? I'd rather go one for 20, honestly. I'd rather pay you more upfront in one season and not have the liability on the back end until you show me that you can stay healthy for more than one season.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree with you one bit. I think the conversation there for the contract versus the tag for Chubb is that if you want to create more cap space in 2023, where you can lower the cap hit is going to be massive for him with a tag in 2023. Maybe you have something that you view as fair or similar to the tag overall, but you can lower the cap hit and push some of that back into future years with a contract extension. But again, we putting the cart before the horse there. We need to see him play healthy and warrant a contract extension before that happens. And you always have that franchise tag in your back pocket to do that. The other thing is if you the tag is going to be more expensive on Bradley Chubb than it would be Draymond Jones. If you want to keep both those guys around, maybe that's something to consider as well. Moving forward here, the running back position, only 3% of the overall grade. I think that's probably fair for the grade. But we have the Broncos at a 3.4 and the highest graded unit on this Broncos team. And not many teams with higher rated running backs. Browns, Vikings, higher. Of course, you have the Colts higher, the Titans higher, the Panthers. That's about it, though. So the Broncos, Mike Clay, very high on Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon.
And you can say that, but doesn't necessarily care about the running back position in general. And like I've said a zillion times, a game changer has no positional value.
Yeah.
So if you've got a game changer at running back, you know it.
Yeah.
You know it, and he's valuable. There is a difference. Now, are they more rare? And that's the thing for me is, quarterbacks across the board are putting up numbers.
Yeah.
There's different. It's obvious that some quarterbacks are better than others. You can just tell by the way they manage a game. But getting numbers, all the quarterbacks are putting up numbers. Where was Derek Carr last year? As far as total passing, he get $120 million. He gets a huge contract. So, a linear tier on something like this, and then I'll get off it. I actually think the running back position, to say it's half as important as the linebackers, no, come on. I disagree. But again, I don't mind just debating stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's again, but when you're talking about linear ranking, that I have a problem with that. When we're going to debate like, oh man, the Bengals running backs are better than 2.4. We expect that you're supposed to have those kind of discussions.
Yeah.
But I do think the running back position should be weighted a little heavier. Looking across here at linebacker 6.5, he's got, and having cornerbacks, weighted higher than edge. At first, I'm like, I don't think so. And then I'm like, okay, you're going to need 4 or 5 cornerbacks. You really only need one really good edge to make a big difference. But you're going to need at least 2 good corners and really 4 decent ones in order to have a good unit. So there's more players there. There's more players there than just edge. And if you take edge and combine it with the D line and say, okay, your defensive line, well, then it's 17% of your grade. Okay. Yeah. Okay. This is making more sense now.
Yeah. I would probably drop the linebacker down to 5.5 and give that extra point to the edge rusher at 10. But we're getting really into the formula here on that one. Also, I saw some people in the comments here, Seahawks with a 0.01 grade at the quarterback position,
which
worse
was
than
last.
the NFL. Dead last.
Which was last.
Yep. Mm-hmm. No grading lower than that. Falling thoughts saying the Seahawks quarterback number is still too high. And Jeremy saying the Seahawks quarterback number is disrespectful. Play better, I guess. I don't know. But Geno Smith and Drew Lock, it's not a good room. It seems like a team that fell in slot this year, openly tanking. Fourth worst rated roster in here. I don't know how they have, obviously, like Pete Carroll and John Schneider are going to get fired after this year, right? Like I can't see any way where those guys have been there for so long. This team goes so off the rails that they're still there.
Who else did the Jets bring in? Because I thought Zach Wilson was arguably the worst quarterback in the NFL last year. No, I'm not saying, okay, he's a bust. He was a rookie. He was what did bother me about him, Nick, and we talked about it going into the Jets game, is when he had time, he was worse. That was what was the scariest part of Zach Wilson's play was, normally you talk about, we're going to pressure a rookie quarterback. No. Let him sit back and make a decision. When he's actually really good is when he doesn't think and just reacts. He's on the run, he's flushed out and just can use his natural ability and gun one. When he's having to read progressions, he was really bad. But it's unit rankings. So Drew Lock, Geno Smith, right down there with them. You've got the Falcons with Marcus Mariota and Desmond Ridder. I'd rather have Mariota and Ridder over Smith and Locke. Yeah. The Texans, I think Davis Mills is getting slept on a little bit here. I think Davis is better than a 0.4. He had a decent season last year.
Yeah, absolutely.
And again, it's not linear. It's not just, okay, these guys are basically getting no credit for having a quarterback.
Yeah. Yep. It's the teams that don't really have, the young quarterbacks, especially those rookies last year, probably want to see what they do year two before we really start to, after year two, you should have a damn good idea of what that quarterback is going to be. We can look pretty recently at Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert just after year two being ranked as, two of the top 6 quarterbacks in football. But a rookie season kind of up and down. We can wait on that one. Back to now the position here that I had the biggest issue with the Broncos is the one that I think has the biggest room for probable improvement, I believe at least, is the wide receiver spot here. Broncos at a 2.4 with the, I guess, out of all the wide receivers around them, or the teams around them, 1, 2, 3, 4 teams above them with worse wide receivers. Remove the Packers at that 0.4. Woof. And the Ravens at the 0.1. Not a big Rashad Bateman fan there, I guess, in Mike Clay. Got to see it to believe it. But Broncos at 2.4. This, to me, even though I know the Broncos have been limited, I would have assumed that Cortland Sutton and Tim Patrick and Jerry Jeudy together would have graded out higher than this.
Again, it's a unit ranking.
Yeah.
If I were to say that if I was in a grade at the very top, okay, there's maybe not a true number 1 yet. Cortland Sutton was on that trajectory, but fell off a little bit. Tim Patrick, a really good number 2. Jerry Jeudy. But again, as we start having this discussion, it gives you the depth of the unit when we start talking about the depth of the wide receiver unit as a whole, which is what this is supposed to be. So I agree with you on that one. The other thing, Nick, is when I start looking at the defense as a whole, 1.3, 1.4, 1.3 in your front 7, fair or not? Now, the questions we had last year were stopping the run and getting pressure on the passer, which we had big questions on. Which was addressed, but Draymond Jones, DJ Jones, I still have a question at the other defensive line position that we've talked about, but the edge position should be pretty good. Linebacker is okay. It doesn't count a ton, but are you a bottom third front 7, bottom quarter front 7 in the NFL? Well, you did pretty good on defense, even if you were a bottom quarter front 7, for goodness sakes. And that wasn't all just because you had a good safety and a good cornerback.
Yeah, I think that the defensive front and the defensive line especially is a depth position, and you just have so many questions about guys who, in my opinion, are borderline rosterable or JAG level players outside of DJ Jones and Draymond Jones. We're still waiting to see what the Iowa State kid Uzurike, there we go, is going to do this season. I'm excited for him as a 4th-round pick, but we don't know yet for him. And after that, we like Deshaun Williams, but he's really small and limited. Mike Purcell was injured last season, not very good. McTelvin Najim, what is he doing? Just a lot of questions about the defensive line. I do think that bringing in DJ Jones, for as good as he is against the run, and maybe I'm crazy, but I think Draymond Jones is really a good player. I would have the Broncos ranked higher than 1.3 on the defensive line just because of DJ Jones and Draymond Jones. The edge rush spot, though, 1.4, I think, is fair, but that one, you talk about the wide receiver having wide variance. We could talk about the end of the year that the Broncos are having like a grade of 3.2 at the edge rush spot because they have the talent there. No doubt. Baron Browning and Nick Bonito, crazy athletic finesse pass rushers. Bradley Chubb, top 5 overall pick, healthy now. And Randy Gregory, I mean, God, I don't know if you had a chance to go watch the tape of Randy Gregory, but when he's healthy, that looks like a guy, incredible tools. Unbelievable.
He's a number one.
Yeah.
You know, he is a number one, and you got him on a really good contract. Again, that's why I have a problem with a linear scale. If you were to say that this was ranked, you know, and the points you're getting for him, I think of it a little bit, Nick, like a war. You know, the war number is a wins above replacement. So if you were to take this guy and replace him with an average player, where would you be? You know, where would you be off? So a positive war, the higher war wins. If in baseball, it's 162 games. If I took this center fielder, his WAR was 4.0. So if I took him out and replaced him with a nobody, an average guy, we lose 4 wins. In this scenario, let's say I take the Packers 4.0 at quarterback and I replace him with Drew, you know, the Seahawks. That's basically no points. It's 1.2 points on 28%. So the Packers drop down to 1.8, which puts them below, right between the Titans and Jaguars, and the Seahawks would go up to 2.9, which would put them top 6. So you mean to tell me, based on your formula, see, this is where I have a problem, Nick. Based on your formula, if I switch the running back rooms of the Packers and the Seahawks, they almost completely switch places. One's now top 5 and the other one's bottom 20. No, garbage.
That's how
in,
important the
garbage
quarterback
out.
is. That's how important
the war. Give me a wins above replacement. Give me a war on this, because you're basically saying we're playing without a quarterback. And, you know, they might not be great, but they're not zeros. You don't get no credit for having a quarterback. Okay, I'm done with this now, but the methodology on this is flawed.
Yeah. I think anything like this is going to be somewhat flawed, though, because it's subjective in nature. And we could probably come up with our own formula, but it's always going to have some subjectivity in it because it is football and there's just not a good enough pure analytical model to capture everything that happens in it. But I think it's an interesting discussion point, and I think it does paint an overall general picture that is worth discussing, like we're doing right now with the Broncos here. Keeping it going here, but the Broncos front 7, definitely an issue. And because of that front 7, the Broncos, if you look over here to the right, 18th ranked defense this season. We'll see what the drop off is between the likes of Fangio to Evero. We don't know yet. Everybody's excited about Evero. He seems like a very intelligent person, and I'm excited to see what he can do with the different pass rush weapons and actually hopefully playing with the lead. But this front 7 looks detrimental. It's one of the things that when Scott and I went over the Broncos game by game prediction this year, the games where the teams were really stout in the trenches and good run teams, I was like, this is a game that could be a potential issue. The Ravens, the Titans, because the Broncos front 7, they might have to throw resources, bodies at the front 7 to stop the run, and that makes you vulnerable in the back end. So maybe not as much of an issue in the AFC West per se, because there's not really any dominant run teams or dominant offensive. Well, Chiefs offensive line is pretty darn good, but not totally dominant offensive lines. But it's definitely an issue, and it's one that sticks out here like a sore thumb on this look over.
Well, and some of these questions you might have, Nick, are the complementary positions. You know, is it, you know, how detrimental is it to have a 4.0 at quarterback if your wide receivers are a 0.4?
Yeah.
You know, or, you know, having, let's see, where's a good, you know, you're the Vikings. You've got a 2.6 quarterback, but a 1.3 offensive line, you know, or the Rams. That didn't seem to bother them. Maybe their offensive line is being slept on a little bit, but some of those are complementary. How can one unit help, or is being weak at one going to hurt the other? Again, look at, you know, I know a lot of people are saying the Ravens, you know, look at the Ravens. What have they done to help Lamar Jackson? Well, lose Hollywood Brown. That's one thing. But that defense, love it. They go and get all those freaks on friggin' defense. But again, you know what? Yes, you can mask some wide receiver problems with a back-to-back MVP quarterback, but at what point do those start hurting one another? So again, there's Nick and I say all the time, we like all the data we can get, but there's still, you can't just look at raw numbers. You've got to interpret them also, because the unit rankings also, it's a team game. They work in harmony.
Yep. Totally. So let's keep it going here. I do want to talk the offensive line here. What do you think about the 2.4 for the Broncos? This is kind of like what I think we've been saying here pretty consistently, is that people scream and shout about the offensive line because when they don't do their job, it's pretty darn obvious to see, and it's really ugly when they do get beat. But a 2.4, if it's a true like 4.0 scale, that puts them, C plus, B minus area on the overall grade. And I think that's probably about right. This Broncos team is just, the offensive line looks to me slightly above average.
But it's not a 4.0 scale. These aren't grades.
Yeah.
These are degraded rankings.
Yeah.
They're rankings on a 40-point scale. They're not grades. So it puts them mid-tier. It puts them 16 down, which puts them mid-tier, middle of the pack. Again, because a 0.1 for the Bears doesn't mean that they don't have an offensive line. It just might mean that they're they might be a 2.0 and getting an F.
Yeah.
If it was a 4-point scale, but it's not. It's not a grade. It's not a 4.0 grade.
True bell curve.
But saying, if you look at that and say, okay, if the high point is a 4 and you're a 2.4 and it is a linear scale, it means we're right in the middle. We are average. We've got a very average offensive line. I think that's fair because, again, it wasn't a good offensive line, but it wasn't the worst offensive line. My gut tells me that the offensive line last year was a little below average. Have you made some improvements? Will some of the scheme? Those are questions we have going into the season. And you're hoping to get positives to those questions. Yes, a change in scheme will put them more on the attack and be able to use their mobility a little bit better. Yes, Garrett Bowles can get back to a Pro Bowl form that got him that massive contract. Yes, Quinn Miners can take a leap in his second year and become a dominant guard. Yes, Lloyd Cushenberry can move up. Yes, Billy Turner is going to be a better option at right tackle. You're not going to get yeses on all of those.
No.
But I think average, if you play at a 2.4, if you play at an average 16th or above offensive line, you're going to be a really good offense.
Yeah. And one thing I don't think we've made enough about the offensive line, and anybody who's played offensive line in the league will tell you one of the most important things about having a good unit is continuity of the unit. And the Broncos are they're changing the scheme, but the only guys up there on paper starting the season that is going to be switched out is going to be the right tackle. And that should be an improvement from Bobby Massey, who's still available in free agency, out there, to Billy Turner. Is Billy Turner even healthy? We'll find out. But the unit as a whole, because it's another year together, they should be more synchronized. And that's really important for the outside zone blocking scheme specifically. So I think 2.4 is fair. And then the Broncos getting their worst grade at tight end at a 0.8. I think that's fair. You have questions about Dulcich. You don't know about Alberto Cuevanam yet. I like Tomlinson as a blocker, but this is a unit, and they grade him only at a 4% of your overall grade. I think I have no issue with the tight end spot, just because you have questions. And when you have questions, you're going to be graded lower. So the last bit I wanted to, before we get into the final grades here, the secondary. I'm actually a little bit shocked that the Broncos secondary is ranked as low as it is here, specifically the cornerback group. Maybe this is me being much higher on Darby than the overall grading system here. But the 3.0, when you have Patrick Surtain here, like, would I take the Broncos cornerback room over, let's say, the Eagles? I really like Darius Slay. I really like James Bradbury, but both of those guys are long in the tooth for the cornerback position. I would rather have Darby and Surtain, without a doubt. And we have a 3.0 to a 3.6 with the Eagles here. What's going on? I don't understand that at all. Excuse me.
Well, if you look at the Eagles ranking on this, they better make the playoffs or they're going to get fired. You're going to get your coach fired. The Eagles were good in the trenches, but is it that white spot right in the middle, that 2.0 at quarterback, that is holding them back some? Again, complementary positions. My offensive line is good, but I don't have a quarterback or running back. Well, how good is the offensive line then? The best offensive line in the league, the best defensive line in the league. You should be pretty good. That's what these numbers are telling me. Watching them play against teams that weren't going to threaten them vertically, in the Broncos and the Falcons, they demolished them. So they were much better than them in the trenches. They bullied them on both ends of the field. Looking at the Broncos 3.0 for cornerback, again, how do you know what are the margins here? That means that they're 10th best. Okay, they're 10th best, but what are the margins? The linear grade. Now, I promise you, I'll stop harping on this. I will after this. But it could be that they're in a second tier behind one team, and really the difference between 2 and 10 is negligible. But you can't tell based on this number. You can't, and it becomes unfair. So it doesn't. You don't know what he actually thinks, other than he thinks it's the 10th best cornerback room. But that could be the difference between does Michael Ojemudia come back fully healthy or not.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden they're a 2. Yeah, not a 2.0, but a 3.9. Ugh, this is frustrating me, Nick.
It's also, to be fair, it's a grade every single positional group in the NFL. Granted, he's had all off season to do it, but this is.
But it's not a grade. It's a ranking.
Okay, ranking.
Which I get.
Score. Let's go score.
It's a ranking. Yeah, it's a ranking.
Yeah.
It's not a grade.
To score them. And Dale coming in.
It's a ranking he's trying to use as a grade, which then F's up his. It's a flawed methodology. It's flawed.
Yeah. Yep. We got Dale coming in too, saying the Browns' defensive line is ridiculously low with Myles Garrett. If you see here, the Browns have a 3.9 at edge. That's where Myles Garrett plays. Myles Garrett is an edge rusher. He's classified there. They have the second best edge room in football behind the Los Angeles Charger with Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack. So they're not low on the Myles Garrett by any means. He's extremely high on Myles Garrett, which you should be. I think if I could pick any edge rusher in football right now to start a team with, it would probably be Myles Garrett. No disrespect to TJ Watt. I think Myles Garrett's more of a force player than he is. So secondary, though, I'm a little surprised to see the Broncos only get a 3.0. 3.1 is fair because I think that Green Jackson's probably, on the back half of his career, still an enforcer, but not really the changer, mover of direction that he used to be. So that seems fair to me. But the 3.0, I mean, gosh, you have maybe this is just because a wait and see on Patrick Surtain, kind of like we're waiting to see on some of these rookie quarterbacks. But I think Patrick Surtain is going to announce himself as a top 5 cornerback this season. Cornerbacks they tend to be good when they're relatively young, 2 years in the league, 3 years in the league, going to be 22. I think you're going to see him near his peak already this season. He's going to be that much better as long as he can stay healthy. So I think this
even a marginal improvement for him would put him in that because he's starting to get the chatter he needs.
Yeah.
The old phrase that the guys make the All-Star game in Major League Baseball the year after they deserve it. Mm-hmm. Pat Surtain had a good year, didn't get the recognition, no preseason talk. He's getting it this year. He's getting a lot of talk. He was, I think, 7th overall or close on that list amongst his NFL peers.
Yeah.
If he's at the same level that he was last year, he's a Pro Bowl corner and he'll get the recognition he deserves.
Yep. Totally. So finally, before we wrap it on up here, looking at these final grades here, the Broncos offensive grade that they have overall is a 1.5, which puts them the 10th overall, top 10 offense, according to Mike Clay for the Broncos this year. I think that's not out of the realm of possibility. Where the Broncos really fall flat is that 18th overall defense, 0.9 score, not a grade. And it's mainly because he just does not trust this Broncos front seven one bit. And it comes back to something we've been screaming on these shows since the Russell Wilson trade happened. Biggest question for this Broncos team is probably going to be just how good that defensive front line is going to be. I don't really care the linebackers much. I think he overvalues them with the 6.5 grade. But the edge and the defensive line together, bringing up 17% of your grade, and you are a 1.3 and a 1.4, not good. Not good at all. So just how good can that Broncos defensive front, how good can they be this season? Might be the make or break of, is this team contending for a playoff spot or a Super Bowl?
Yeah, and a lot of resources went into, not as much as the quarterback position, but the quarterback position was a bigger hole in this team than the defensive line, even if the defensive line still has some question marks, and so does the offensive line. But again, not as big of question marks. So a lot of resources still went into that front seven, including a couple free agent linebackers. Not your first round pick, but your first pick in the draft.
Yeah.
Big money to an edge. Big money to a replacement for a guy you sent out in Shelby Harris and bringing in DJ Jones. Not as much went into the front, the offensive line during the offseason, but you went and got your quarterback. You're like, okay, we're okay on offensive line. Our big improvement needs to happen behind center, not necessarily at center. And I agree with that. You can only do so much in one offseason. And I think the big questions have been addressed. Now there's smaller questions down the line.
Absolutely. Some smaller questions and finally, before we get on out of here, my biggest issue here for the Broncos is I think they're a grade a little bit low. I think it's mainly coming down to the wide receivers. I'd bump them up to maybe like a 2.8. Defensive line, maybe like a 1.9. Edge is fine there to 1.4. Everything else, but if you raise the wide receiver room in the edge position some, that would raise you up pretty substantially. And I think the Broncos, I don't think they should be number one in the grading scale here, but I would have them above the Eagles, above the Cowboys, above the Ravens, and above the Saints. I think that's a little bit surprising to see the Eagles, Cowboys, Ravens, and Saints above the Broncos, especially the Saints. How did the Saints getting a 3.1 on their wide receiver room when their wide receivers are Jarvis Landry, who's not been good for a bit? Michael Thomas hasn't played for a full year, and question marks outside of that. That's a crazy difference for me in that grade, but I don't think the Broncos should be worse than the Saints, Ravens, Cowboys, Eagles. Fine behind the Chiefs, Rams, Bengals, Bills, Packers, Chargers, Buccaneers. But that just seems, those teams there I don't really respect as much as the Broncos.
Yeah, you know who I do respect though. Obviously coming in, we got a good grade. We got a passing grade, and Ethan doesn't necessarily care if it's the grade or the ranking. The 4.0 on this was a number one ranking, and it was also a perfect grade. Yeah. So thank you so much coming in. Hot pink, the fuchsia. BFB grade ranking 4.0. Have a great weekend, everyone. Hashtag the closer. That's probably a good sign that we need to get us out of here. When you were running through a couple of those names real quick, Nick, and I saw this, when you're struggling with Owuzurike, I'm like, I'm ready for Owuzurike and Ojemudia to come in for a tackle, and then Okowebanam coming off the sidelines to congratulate him and watch the word salad that they wouldn't even try. The announcers wouldn't even give that a try. So they need a nickname. Michael O and Uwe or what they've given him a nickname already, Iwa or something. I forgot, based off his first name. Emmy, I think it might be just Emmy. In for the tackle, but there are some difficult names on this roster for sure. Yeah. And Luke Watts, hello, can we give you a shout out? Yeah, we can do that. Hello, Luke. You know what else I can give a shout out? It's Gary Leeds Palmer. Aloha, Gary, because aloha can mean hello and goodbye. Thank you for the stars, my friend. And it is about time for us to get out of here.
Yeah, absolutely. We appreciate everyone joining us today. Fun exercise. I always really enjoy Mike Clay putting those out there. We can disagree with some of the grading methodology here, but I think it's a good exercise just to kind of go through it and see where one person who's done this for a number of years now, gets paid to do it, thinks about this team and where some areas you really disagree. Broncos can go pretty far this year, but you have questions at some key positions. Quarterback being a 3.0 versus a 3.5 makes a huge difference when that's 28% of your grade. Wide receiver only being 2.4, the edge and the defensive lines being graded very low. Those areas, if they, even one of those spots ticks up just, 0.05 of that grade, the Broncos are going to be skyrocketed up the rankings. So areas to watch. Hopefully it'll come out better this season. And hopefully this is a situation we talked about. I think more so Carl and I have talked about this grading scale for almost year after year. And we've always said, well, the roster is fine, but the quarterback's rated 0.2 or, 0.4. So that's you're probably not going to all of a sudden snap up and be in the top, 3.0 or above score there. And so your roster is always going to be ranked low. Now we're there. We can talk about these other things mattering, which is great.
Yeah, just doing quick math on this. If you move up to average in your front seven, that's 25% of your grade. That would be if you move up to average, which would be, let's see, 16 minus 4.0 is 2.4s across the board. 3 points, a quarter of that. You get 1.2 extra points. You go to, you move up significantly. And I did the math wrong on that, but even just you move up to about top 5 in the league. Yep. If you end up with average in those spots. So that's not out of the question, for goodness sakes, to think that you've got an average front seven.
Especially with the talent at the edge rushing spot. A lot of questions, but you have talent there. It just needs to come together and stay healthy. So fingers crossed.
Stay healthy. Edge should go from let's see, 4.0, 26th, 25th in the league to top 10. It really should. It's got the possibility. We've said that's the biggest floor and ceiling. I think the biggest difference between the two is something we've used to describe this unit. The biggest difference between the floor and the ceiling variance is edge, because it could be really, really good in a cup, or it could just be really bad, where everything else is pretty steady. Everything else, there's some depth there. There's talent there. Whereas you're some question marks with your injury history. Injuries happen everywhere, but you got some injury history at the edge position.
Yep, totally. Well, guys, we appreciate you. Make sure you're following us on Twitter. Scott is at Scott Kennedy. I'm at Nick Kendell MHH. Also follow us at BFB_pod as well as at Mile High Huddle. If you haven't done so yet, check out our merch store at huddlepod, .com. Check out the gear. Always rocking the hats here on the morning shows. Scott probably has the coffee mug there. Mine is packed up somewhere. It'll show up at some point. There it is. Broncos for breakfast mug. Support us. That'd be a good one. I always love it when people say, hey, got this. Add us on Twitter when you do. Follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/Mile High Huddle and facebook.com/Mile High Huddle pod. Somebody said on the show earlier, listen to you guys after the fact on podcasts, on Apple Podcasts. If you do that, make sure you go to your Apple Podcasts, find us on Huddle Up, scroll down, and leave us a 5-star rating and a review. Helps us a heck of a lot. A lot of good Broncos podcasts out there, a lot of good content creators. We like to think that we're doing things a little differently here and in a little bit more inclusive, community-based shows. So make sure you scroll down, give us a 5-star rating, and tell us what you think. Say that Nick sent us. We love the morning shows. Excited for Mondays to come back. And also, of course, guys, when you can, please, if you haven't done so already on YouTube, like, subscribe, and share the shows, share the channel on your social medias. And I know that sometimes YouTube has had some issues when we go live of it starting. A quick way to fix that, click that bell notification. You will get a ping when we do go live that you can click on then. So if you click the alert, which is the bell, you can circumvent that issue. So make sure you do that. And Scott, what's the rest of your day looking like before we officially get out of here?
Let's see. We got Thursday. It's fairly open. I slept in a little bit, so I need to catch up on some work I usually do at 7 a.m. Want to say hello to Michael real quick. Michael, are you coming in on one of the other channels? Because the one I keep an eye on during the chat is the Mile High Huddle Facebook page, and you're not showing up in there, and you usually do. So I just wondered why you're not showing up in that stream. But I see you here all the time, and thank you for being here. And I just wanted to give Michael a shout out real quick. And if we hadn't, it's because I don't see you. I'm active in the Mile High Huddle chat on Facebook during the streams, not any of the others. There's only so many you can do. So welcome in. Appreciate you being here. And we want to say goodbye and have a good weekend to everybody, including Dale. MHH is my favorite. Well, all y'all are our favorites. So we'll see you tonight back on the Mile High Huddle podcast. Zach should be back tonight. I said that on last time for Sunday and ended up filling in. But Zach should be back tonight after about a week off. So looking forward to that tonight.
Yeah, guys, we appreciate you. I will see you guys again next Tuesday. You guys have a great weekend. And as always, choose kindness and choose compassion. Go Broncos.